Now we will be tackling the issue that has shaken the country in the past week. Now the 2024 hashtag End Bad Governance protest and the quest for justice for juveniles caught up in the movement. The protests, which began in August, were sparked by Nigeria's growing economic hardship and hunger, described as the worst economic crisis in a generation. The demonstration, though peaceful, initially turned violent after Nigerian security agencies attempted to quell them, resulting in loss of lives, injuries, and arrests, and even, of course, damages of properties. However, a disturbing twist has emerged, with reports of minors being charged with treason and put on trial following the crackdown. Recently, unsettling videos surfaced online showing malnourished minors in a courtroom in Abuja, with some fainting from alleged hunger. This raises serious concern about the treatment and protection of vulnerable children amidst the chaos. Now, joining me today to discuss this are experts and advocates who will delve into the implications of this act and these events and discuss ways to ensure that there is justice and protection for juvenile affected by this protest, and we will explore the broader context of the End Bad Governance movement, the government responses, and the international community's reaction. Now we'll begin this crucial conversation with our guest in the studio. First guest is the Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Professor of Law, Maxwell Gidado. Good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And also we have virtually someone that would be joining us, the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, the CISLAC, the Executive Director of this, that's Comrade Auwal Musa Rafsanjani, joining us to dissect this. Good morning, Comrade. All right. I think we would have him just later on. But let's come back to Professor to talk about this. Now, I want to talk to you from the point of law of all of this before we have someone from the civil society to come and dissect this on a more, Nigerian crying to their government level. Now, Professor, you've seen how all of this emerged and how it started from just something, just coming out to say, we are protesting, which everyone agreed was peaceful protest is allowed. It's your right. That's the only way to show your grievances to the government. But with everything that happened afterwards, let me hear your first reaction with what is going on.
Yes. My first reaction on citing these children, these minors, before the Federal High Court last week was very disgusting, because I see it as a show of shame. Because, first of all, the first question to ask is, what were these children involved in? And you have to look at their age range, between 12 to 15. I know there were adults, amongst them. But the point to make is, let's concentrate on these minors, these juveniles. Now, first of all, they knew that they were engaging themselves in a protest. And to start with, protest is a constitutional right. Section 40 gives any person in Nigeria, minor, senior, adult, the right to protest. So these children just found themselves in this protest. Many of them were given, because like the part of the treason, the charge that even was leveled against them, they all kind of lumped it into, at the end of the day, into treasonable felony. And the issue of the aspect of the treasonable felony has to do with, as far as my perception of the case is concerned, was the holding of the Russian flag. Because all others are state offenses. In other words, stuff like willful destruction of property, unlawful assembly, and acts likely to bring about breach of peace.
What does unlawful assembly mean? Isn't that a contradiction of, the peaceful, the protest, the right to protest that we're talking about?
Precisely. What I'm just saying is that such offenses are state offenses. They're not federal offenses. They're supposed to be tried in their state of origin, the states where they had the protest. Yeah. If at all, you're now turning the protest into maybe it turned violent, and you are charging them to court. That's the point. That's why I'm just reeling out. But when you talk of treason, treason is a more weightier offense, and it's something that ought to be tried at a federal court. So you can be justified by picking someone from another state and bringing him to a federal high court in Abuja to try him for treason, because that is a more weightier offense. But these chaps, these kids, I want to believe anywhere you go by stretch of any imagination couldn't have known even what was treason. Even if it's the flags, you have to know that these children don't even know the colors, even Nigerian flag. For crying out loud, these children are even almajiris. They're out of school children. I want to believe so. So if you look at the domains where they were picked and brought here in a Black Maria, from Sokoto, from Katsina, from Kaduna, Bauchi to Abuja here, and to be arraigned before the Federal High Court. There are so many abnormalities. These children are not even supposed to be tried in a normal court. They're supposed to be taken to juvenile courts. You don't expose them to such courts.
All right, there was something that before then, because in the process of all of this, for the longest time, we knew since the month of August that the federal government were holding over 1,000 people, which civil societies have come out to say release those people for what they did and let them be tried in their various states, at least make it a bit legal. But there was a deliberate attempt in hiding that there were minors there, because nobody knew of it. The parents of these kids, most of them thought, some of them, we heard them cry, that they thought their kids were dead, and that was why they were even mourning, not even knowing that their kids are, being in prison. So, with that scenario, do you think there was a deliberate attempt to hide that situation?
Very well. As far as I'm concerned, there is more to this thing that meets the eye. And at the end of the day, my take is that government should look into this matter seriously, with a view to forestalling any future occurrences of this. Because as far as we're concerned, these minors ought not to be, in the first place, detained. Look at the number of days they were detained. 93 days, for crying out loud. Children of this nature, you ought to have taken them to Bostal homes, reformatory homes, and you try to bring them up. Let them not grow up with that feeling about their country. It's going to be very dangerous.
Of course. And
more so when you juxtapose this with what they did to the terrorists in the Niger Delta at that time when they were granted amnesty, and to even the Boko Haram under Buhari's administration, where some of them were even rehabilitated, sent abroad, to go and study. So what crime did these children commit that is so grievous that this sort of punishment will be meted onto them? As far as I'm concerned, they ought to be compensated.
All right, talking about the federal government, now we've seen some people come out to defend the government, including the federal government's lawyer representing them, talking about saying it's really annoying, the scenario he painted, because we saw the video and he made a mockery of himself. But then we saw ACP Olumiwa Adejobi also come out to explain and say, oh, if someone is from the age of 7 to above or to 18, then there is something that they have to be charged as well. Explain to us, as a learned person in law, if at all that makes sense. Let Nigerians understand the implication of how a 7-year-old or 8-year-old can be charged to court.
Yes, you see, what the law says is this: for purposes of crime, even if you are a minor below the age of 16 and you commit a crime, you are to be treated as an adult committing that crime. The only difference is that you are not supposed to, in accordance with even the Child Rights Act, the regional law, as well as international law, you're supposed to treat these children with some bit of leniency because of their age, because of their interest. You have to look at the interest of the child. That counts first. Granted, he or she has committed a crime, but you will have to treat him different from treating the way you treat an adult who commits that similar crime. And that's the more reason why there exists in the criminal justice system, a juvenile criminal justice system, which says children of that group, even if arrested, they are not to be taken to prisons. They're not to be taken to cells where they will be lumped with adults.
They had criminals there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do we have the juvenile system and courts in Nigeria?
There are only 3 postal homes in Nigeria, unfortunately. One in Kaduna, the second one in Kwara, and the third one is in Ogun State. The entire Nigeria. There are only 3 postal homes. Postal home means remand homes, where you take children of that nature who commit crime, a crime for that in that context. You can take them there because it's reformatory. It is to go and reform them. It's to just go and make them understand that this thing they've done is not good. And you can even spiritually aid them and assist them school, give them skills so that when they get out of that place, they won't go back to these crimes that they've committed. So it is even in our Child Rights Act, which is an act of the National Assembly and is being domesticated by many states in the country. And we are also signatories to the African Charter on Welfare of the Child, as well as the United Nations CRC, Court of Rights, of citizens, of rights of the child. So when you look at all these instruments to which Nigeria is a signatory, the regional and the international one, talk less of the Nigerian Act that takes care of these children. Why did they put the law on its head when it came to these children? So this begs for a lot of questions. Because to even begin with, the Attorney General doesn't have the locus to try them in a federal high court. There's no locus to try them in the federal high court. And I want to bet you that if these children have the benefit of lawyers who will defend them, they would claim damages and they will win this case, as far as I'm concerned. Because there's no way you can prove that these children willfully or did commit this treason. Treason, the definition of treason is an organized a system where you want to bring down the government by even sometimes waging war against that government. I mean, it's a weighty offense. How can a 12-year-old, child commit treason? How? Just tell me the mechanism where he will have such. There must be some people aiding him. He must have, yes, there must be accomplices, or they may just be used. You must get behind it. In a civilized climate, the criminal justice system will go beyond these children. Because like I said, the only evidence that is even bringing about the issue of treason is that Russian flag. How did this kids
which we already know
exactly?
We already know what happened. What happened in the northern part of Nigeria. First of all, we've been crying to our government, both the federal and state government, that's from the northern part, that the education system is whack. Insecurity is ravaging this part of the country. That is really affecting and leaving kids displaced away from their parent. So definitely, these are kids that do not understand the concept of anything. Saw something, were angry, wanted to show off that they're angry, pull up a flag, and the government is holding on to this as something to hold them down. But then, like I said earlier, one of the disappointing things for Nigerians and especially the northern part of the country, which is affected by this, because these are kids from the northern part of the country. It's the IGP of police comments, prosecutors comment, the lawyer defending the federal government's comment. What was your take on what that lawyer did or say about that those kids are actually there to visit their parents, they're there to visit with their parents, and also saying most of them are even married. With that, I want to hear your take on that. And do you think, based on its clear thoughts that it's a lie, that is something these people are not really telling us?
That was a lie from the pit of hell. And as a lawyer, I felt embarrassed listening to my learned friend telling lies. When the camera beamed on these children, and you will see hapless kids, some will malnourished, from the way and manner they were handled these 93 days was so inhuman. For you to come and say these children were married or they came to visit Is that allowed in the courts, in our courts? Some of them were even lying down. Like those 4 of them could not even stand being charged for them to get into the box where they will be the charges will be read to them for them to answer guilty or not guilty. They even never had that strength, to go and have their charge read. 4 of them, they had to be taken out, to be given medical attention. So for a Leonard friend to come out and make that sort of say that sort of lies, on the face of the camera, that these were not the people that were being charged, that they were adults. And that was just a drama, as far as I'm concerned.
An irritating drama.
It shouldn't have been taken.
An irritating drama, Professor. Let's talk about the bail money for these kids. Nigerians have been comparing what happened. I don't know if you saw a viral video of the House of Representatives hitting someone, which I'm sure, based on the law, there is about 3 charges on him, on that part. But then they gave him a 500,000 naira bail, and then these people or kids have been given 10 million. Now, first of all, let's look at the basis of this. These kids are crying for hunger, hence the reason why they had to come out to protest in the first place. You arrest them and they're minors, and you're charging them for 10 million naira. Why do you think that is? Is it because of the weighty allegation on them or charges?
Yes, apparently the learned Justice Obiora Egwata, in giving that bail, those bail conditions, I don't know what went into the mind of my lord. Perhaps he was taken by the fact that they were being charged for treason, and he felt giving them a light bail condition wasn't going to be well, with this, or commensurate with the sort of charges that they were being, brought to court for. But as far as I'm concerned, my lord ought to have looked at the circumstances of the case, because after all, the law is not meant for man, but it's man that is meant for the law. You ought to tinker justice with mercy. Then you see, at the end of the day, when they even said he had to run out of the court when he saw some ugly scenes, of the children, then I now had to marry the 2. Why didn't he use that? If he saw how the pitiable situation these children were looking, and for him to slam 10 million on each of them, 1.4 billion. That was what my lord wanted before these children can go on bail. By stretch of any imagination, he never wanted them to get out of this bail, and he wanted them to go back and languish in this jail and die in the jail. Unfortunately, because you have to look at these things with reason. Put these children perhaps in the shoes of your own kids.
Yeah. And
they're there in that very picture. There's nothing that would have stopped my lord to even say, please, don't let them just go on self-recognizance, or let their parents, come and take them on bail with the promise that they will bring them any day the court needs them. That would have even been okay, so that their parents can take care of these children and make them eat food and then get back to their normal state. Because these children, if you leave some of them for about 7 days, some of them are not going to survive.
It's really a really sad situation, Professor. But we have our guests joining us virtual already. The Executive Director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, that's CISLAC, Comrade Auwal Musa Rafsanjani. Good morning, Comrade. Are you with us? Good morning. Okay. It's good to have you. Let's hear your take about what is going on. We've seen civil societies come out to make a bit of threats, saying there's going to be mass action if the federal government does not go back on, what is they're charging or threatening these kids, these minors, on, saying that they should be released on them. What is your take as someone from the civil society group?
Thank you very much. I think first and foremost, this is a national and international embarrassment. What the Nigerian official, particularly the security and even the judicial officers have done was to embarrass Nigeria. This is because Nigeria is signatory to several international and national protocols of convention protecting human rights and protecting children. What they have done is simply to abuse those laws and incur incredible damage, psychological destruction, torture, and maltreatment on children that they are still, innocent until proven by law. And even within these charges that they have brought, Nigerians and the entire world knows that these are framing charges just because of the laziness of some people who are supposed to do a thorough work. You cannot simply because you are a policeman, you will now pack everybody who has come to the protest or who has not even come to the protest. There are several information of some of these suspected people that were not even part of any protest. You arrested them, bundled them, put them with adults so that they can learn hard criminality. I think what the police have done, is just as far as I'm concerned, is a lazy work, and it is simply a shame that this is the record that those police officers who have done this will do. And secondly, this can only happen in the northern Nigeria. No police can do this in the southeast or in the south or in the southwest. It is only in the northern Nigeria that, because lives are not valuable, and because the elders, the political leaders in the northern Nigeria, they appears not to be concerned with the welfare of their people. This is the reason why this can happen. Otherwise, how can police do this lazy work? How can police help to institutionalize criminality? Because what they have done is simply to groom these kids, put them, with hard criminal people, adults, so that they can learn to be the real criminals. Secondly, the way they have maltreated them, the way they have malnourished them, the way they have psychologically and mentally tortured them is more than any other punishment that they are going to even do to them. So I think what we are pushing in civil society is that we need a thorough investigation and proof of all the officers involved in arresting these children indiscriminately. They cannot just go free like that. They have tortured these kids. These kids are supposed to be in school. They deprive them from going to school. They deprive them from being even, in the health condition. They have deprived them from all sorts of things that they should be. I think it is necessary that Nigeria and international community understand the gravity of this thing that some of these lazy, police officers have done. Because if not laziness, how can you live hardened criminals, terrorizing and killing Nigerians? You did not find way to arrest those who are killing Nigerians, who are kidnapping Nigerians. It is these kids, age of 12, 13, 14, 15. It is this one that you want to come and kill. So what we don't even know, which is why we are asking for investigation, is that we are not sure if some of these children did not, die in the custody. So we need to do a proper investigation to know how many people they have arrested, and what is the state of their health, what is the state of their psychology, what is the state of their mental health, because we are not sure. There's no guarantee that these children, some of them, were not even wasted. There's no guarantee. So we need to do investigation. So
Okay,
that this allegation that a
Rafsanjani,
lot of people are pushing that maybe some of them
talking about everyone doing their
must be
part. I don't know if you
investigation.
can hear me, Rafsanjani. Talking about everyone doing their part. One of the concerns you raised was the northern elders and leaders not saying anything or doing anything. Now, in the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, the Kano State Governor Yusuf is demanding that there should be a return or release of these detainees that are from Kano State to be returned back to the state. Apart from him, have any of the civil society organization gotten some kind of response from leaders in Nigeria, not even the northern leaders alone, but leaders from Nigeria trying to walk through this and get these kids released at the earliest?
So, so let me say, okay, we thank Governor Yusuf for intervening, but 3 months after this inhuman degradation, this inhuman condition of these children, lawyers have been on this, fighting for these kids. No political leader has been able to do anything. But now we are happy that at least the consciousness is coming, because like I said, you cannot do this thing to anybody. Look, one musician died in Lagos in fact, for almost 1 year now. The matter is not finished. During Bahari, police killed an officer, a lawyer. There was like almost a national punishment, presidential punishment on that, police officer. But when it comes to the north, because the northern people did not take themselves serious, they have already their value and their personality and their respect. People are not longer respecting them in the manner they used to respect them before, because of greed, because of all sorts of things attributed to that. That is why they did not bother to even intervene, not only on this but also on several other issues. But again, I want to say that civil society organizations, they were the first to quickly to intervene on this. You remember immediately when that scandal happened in the court, CISLAC issued a statement, SERAP issued a statement, several civil society organizations, issued statement on that. And based on those statements and based on the social media by very dark man who was in the detention together with this kid, he couldn't hold himself. In fact, he becomes so unconscious and he has to rush to the court to do that. So I want to say that it's a national, issue. If you look at the social media, you see from north, south, Muslim, Christians, international community, including including Al Jazeera, including CNN, including the Fox, all of the papers all over the world, they are carrying this in. So that is why we think Nigerian government, instead of the police to come and be, grandstanding and justifying unjustifiable, they should rather even show remorsefulness. They should even apologize and make effort to make sure that they rehabilitate these children, because they have already done incredible damage on them. These children, some of them, they cannot even read anything. Not to talk of planning to do coup to pro-government. You can see that this is a very frivolous, very funny, and very insensitive even use of word to do. And the police that is prosecuting the thing, you could see that even his colleagues were laughing at him. The lawyer, the federal government, they were even laughing at him, because you see that what he was saying was just completely, but he was actually pressing the police.
All right, Rafsanjani, before I let you go quickly, I want to get your take on what the civil society is going to do. You're already pushing out there, but what would be done, and how earliest are you hoping that these kids will be released from this cell?
So civil society organization is already working with the lawyers that are already helping on this matter in the last 3 months. to see whatever support they can give them legally to make sure that these are skilled, these children are released and rehabilitated and compensated, and then sent back to school. Because that is what the government is supposed to do. When they even arrested them, they noted that these children, they didn't even know their left and right. They cannot even define what even the protest was, And if you have a serious government, a serious security sector, they would have already interviewed them, examined them, and those ones that you need to caution them, you caution them. Those ones that you think you need to give them a lighter, punishment, you do that, but not incarcerate them, not to put them with criminals, and look at even the spokesperson of the police. He was saying that you can prosecute a 13-year-old. Will he be happy to see his child? Look, people should just put these children as in their own children. Most people that watch that scene, they ended up in tears.
Yeah.
Many people were crying because of what they have seen. You see, these children are struggling to get biscuit, even water. They were scrambling for biscuit.
It's really sad. It's
when
really
did
sad.
we lose humanity in this country?
Indeed.
Because of regime protection.
Well, indeed. Thank you so much, Rafsanjani, for joining us to dissect, this situation. Appreciate you, and kudos to the good work that you and other CSOs are doing. Appreciate it. All right, that was Comrade Auwal Musa Rafsanjani, the Executive Director of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, as the CISLAC. Now, coming back to the studio where we have, of course, a Professor of Law, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Maxwell Gidado, still here to clear us or walk us through the implication of what is going on and how to make sure these kids just get back home to their parents because of what is going on, or if at all it's going to move, they are going to be moved to juvenile. Then let's see how this whole thing is going to, to do. Now, Professor, back to this situation. I'm still confused as to what is going on with everything going on, with the calls of people like you coming out to say we're going to make sure that this case, what is going on, is not fair on them. What do you think is the best solution? How soon should Nigerians expect this case, or the federal government, the law, to work in some sort of a mercy of this case?
Yes, this act of man's inhumanity to man that is being exhibited in the country today needs to be copped. In other words, these children have been humiliated. These children have had their fundamental human rights been breached by all standards. Because whether it's under the ground norm, under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they are not supposed, to be treated in that manner. It's a breach of their fundamental human rights, which is the right to dignity, the right to being human, their fundamental human rights to associate and to assemble. This is an inherent fundamental human right enshrined in the Constitution. 2, the Child Rights Act, also under Section 11, gives a child the right to live his life in accordance with the dictates of the law. And even if he or she commits crime, he should be treated in that context of being a child whom you will need to groom, and they are to be the leaders, of tomorrow. So when you look at all these two put together, the civil society have had their side, the legal, the lawyers are also up on this issue. The NBA, all branches, they've been bombarding the media about the fact that these children ought to be released immediately. Thank God there's a response from the Office of the Attorney General. I read in the papers that the Office of the Attorney General has directed the police, much as he can't vary the court's order. But he has directed that the files be transferred from where they are now, even from the courts, to his office, the office of the Director of Public Prosecution, DPP of the Federation, with a view to review this very case and have these children be treated in a very civil manner. And as a matter of fact, the punishment that these children ought to have been given, the number of days they were detained, has even surpassed the punishment that ought to have been given to them. Hence, I also agree in total with those who are saying these children need compensation, adequate compensation. In fact, there's an author that even said they should be taken to Hilton Transcorp. And the number of 93 days these kids stayed in detention, they should be in Nikon for 93 days at the expense of government, and let them be well fed, let them be well taken care of, their health well taken care of, and they should be interviewed to find out the level of education with a view to government taking over their education and be sponsoring them up to university level as a compensation to the parents. Because that will be the only way you can assuage this thing that's happened to these children. If they leave these children the way they are, even if they're released on Monday, as most of the civil societies are clamoring, some are saying tomorrow should be the deadline. If you don't release these children by tomorrow, they are going on the streets. Okay, now even if it's just there's a pronouncement, release them, the damage you've done to these children
has already been done.
Is been done. And as I said, the only panacea is for adequate compensation. The same manner you treated the Boko Haram kids, the same manner you treated the Niger Delta kids.
We're talking about the hard criminals.
Yes, criminals hadn't. These were the ones that the havoc they were doing was even worse than what these kids did. Because as I said, other than holding the Russian flags, what is so grievous?
That is the treasonable felony
on the streets. Even if they went and burnt, some offices, or they took chairs and all that, does that merit they're being treated this way? It's really going over the top, as far as
So, Professor, we know that Africans were so keen on, watching what the developed countries do and all of that. But when it comes to, implementation of laws, talking about even the remand, we only have 3 of them. So basically, we don't have things to equip and push for these charges that the federal government is saying. And also, the precedent is yet to. This is a very serious crime, or serious situation. As much as everyone is trying to downplay it, the child or a child should never have been in a prison cell with hard criminals. So with all that and breach of fundamental rights in a country that prides itself as a democratically governed state, why do you think the president has not addressed this issue? Because Nigerians at this point have raged about this. If this can happen to kids, then what is it? What is to say that it will not happen to a grown-up being just not following the justice system and doing right by the people?
It's very unfortunate that we haven't had, the president come on the screen and in the media, to condemn this act and ask the right thing be done, and for even these children to be released and taken care of and compensated as soon as possible. This is what in a civilized setup, in a civilized climate, this is what you see. You can even see the president of America coming to discuss with our president about the release of one of his former aides or his aides. That's tell you how serious. We're talking of an individual, a president of the whole United States of America.
All right.
Calling our president
Professor,
to discuss.
Quickly, what is your call on the relevant authorities on the release of these kids?
Yes, I want to appeal to the office of the Attorney General that the way he requested for the files of these juveniles to be taken to the office of his DPP of the Federation for a case to be reviewed, he should go further than that, and it should be done immediately. Not later than 6 p.m. today. These children should be reunited with their families, and the adequate compensation even if you don't take them to the Nikon, like one of the writers have said, at least adequate compensation be given to these children for them to be rehabilitated, for them to have some kind of psycho education, on them. Yeah. They need to be psychologically. And when you see them, when you look at their pictures, when you see them on the television, like when they were being paraded in the courts,
they're traumatized.
They're really traumatized. So the government ought to take measures, do something urgent and something concrete that would douse down this tension.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's really uncivilized.
Indeed. Thank you so much, SAN, for joining us, Professor Maxwell Gidado, and appreciate you always.
My pleasure.
Right.
Always nice to be here.
Indeed.
Sorry for being emotional.
Oh, no, of course. Everyone would be. I mean, we're human, so we
very
should be
unfortunate.
Human. All right, this is much we can take. We'll take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into the front pages of the National Daily. So stay with us.